You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
What's up, the internet? It's producer Kyle. How's it going? We are like 7 minutes late, so we're going to go very, very fast in our cold open here. But I wanted to tell everyone a very inappropriate joke first. Why are there no pregnant Barbies? Because Ken came in another box. This is in stores this week. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
How do you keep bagels from running away?
How?
Put locks on them.
What's the difference between hungry and horny?
Me.
Where you put the cucumber.
That's fair.
Oh,
This
yeah.
show got off on a very inappropriate note, which is good because there's a lot of boobs in this week's books.
There are.
Both men and women. So there's something for everyone in this week's books.
Yep.
Should we get right to it?
Sure, why not?
We'll start with Fire and Ice. Oh, Eddie. Ed.
I saw that joke last night. Anne Hathaway was telling it
Yes.
to Jon Stewart.
TikTok. Yep, I saw it on TikTok.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Fire and Ice, though. Bill Willingham, written from Dynamite.
Yep. Leonardo Manco is the artist with covers by everybody. You know, there's a Sienkiewicz cover. There's a Frazetta movie poster cover. There's a Manco cover. There's a Linsner cover, Asrar cover, Frankenvilla cover. They have a lot of covers to this.
If we have to name all the artists who do covers for this one book from Dynamite, that's all we'll do this whole episode.
That's why I was just doing last names.
We could do just last names. It would still take the whole hour.
Yeah. If you guys aren't familiar, this is based off the 1982 animated film by Frank Frazetta and Ralph Bakshi. That it's a classic. You know, it's a cult classic. Fire and Ice. This is the first time anybody's expanded this universe since 1982. Sarah Frazetta is one of the driving forces behind this, along with the Bakshi family. Bill Willingham, who's known for Fables and stuff like that, is doing the writing. It's a little slow. It's a little confusing. But I have faith in Bill Willingham to tell a hell of a story. So I'm going to take this and love the art. The story was interesting enough that I want to stick with it. But hopefully it's going to make a lot more sense. And this is supposed to be a prequel to the movie. So you don't necessarily have to have seen the movie to know this, but some more information is definitely going to be needed.
So my Frank Frazetta back knowledge is largely just the Harris stuff, the Vampirella stuff that he did. I don't have a ton of Frank Frazetta experience, is how I'm going to put it. I've not seen this particular movie. That said, this feels like it's of that era. The biggest fear I had when Nick told me they were doing Frazetta stuff, that they were working on Fire and Ice, and that they're doing this thing, was that it wouldn't feel like it was from the right time, that it would feel modern when we need it to feel not modern.
Yeah.
This feels old. And that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Because when you don't know anything about Frank Frazetta, and you don't know anything about his work, the fact that it feels old could be a turnoff to people. It doesn't feel like modern comics. Let me discourage you from having those thoughts. This was not at all my cup of tea, and I loved every panel and page. Bill Willingham is a spectacular writer. And what's his name? Leonardo Menko,
Yeah.
who did the art. It's not the kind of art I would normally dig, but it feels right for this book. It feels like something that Frank Frazetta would have done, which is how you want this book to feel. As much as, again, there's nothing here that I would normally be attracted to, this book seems to put it all together and turn it into something that I'm very excited to keep reading.
I know this was a rotoscope cartoon back in the day. I've seen bits and pieces of it. Outside of that, I know nothing of this world. It felt like I was just dropped in the middle of a story. I know it's a prequel, but I couldn't get into it. The art was good, but the book itself felt like every other fantasy book I've ever read. I didn't feel any connection with any characters. So I'm gonna wait till the next issue before I completely am like, I'm out. Now, for right now, this one isn't for me, but I hope people that were excited for this and that picked this up, I hope they enjoy it, because I know tons of people that were super excited this was coming out. So, like I said, I'll have to give it another issue before, I just completely I'm out.
I was surprised how everybody's mother was in the show in the book.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Based on an idea by James Tynion. He's using all of his good ones already. I like Tate Bromall a lot. I think that they're a great writer. They've done a lot of things that I really enjoy. This ain't it. This is another one of those books that has the potential to be something that could be really fun and really cool. And it just seems to be executed poorly. It's like, what it feels to me is like Tynion came up to Tate and was like, hey, I've got this idea. He's a guy or a girl with hair and he wears goggles. Go! And there was no framework given to the idea at all. And so it doesn't really mesh with what I know of Tate Bromall's work from Behold Behemoth and some of the other things I've read. So that for me is a really holding this book back. Towards the end of this book, it got really interesting. And I feel like it has the makings. It just hasn't put it all together yet. And it needs to. Also, go ahead and scrap like 2/3 of the title. This is another one of those James Tynion came up with an idea for really long titles. Well, doesn't really help us that much. So I would just that was my read on this book, was that story-wise it was all right. It got good at the end, but it's still like a house with no siding or insulation. It's just it's kind of coming together, but it's not there yet.
Do you guys remember the movie Swordfish?
Topless Halle Berry?
Topless Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, John Travolta.
I remember Topless Halle Berry.
They opened with the middle of the movie. Big intense moment. Travolta's holding a bunch of people hostage. There's an explosion. And then after the explosion, they jump back to the beginning and lay things out. They hook the audience that way. Tynion needs to sit down and watch that movie. Because, and this is not just this book, it's something he tends to do. He spends so much time with setup and character and mood building that he forgets to actually have anything happen that we care about. Something interesting did happen at the end of this issue. You find out, okay, maybe something's going on here that's interesting. Kids trying to do something they shouldn't be doing. But by the time you get there, you don't care. You're just annoyed that this guy's walking around talking to a dead bird.
Right. If there had been one unparrot joke in here, it would have saved the whole book.
Yep. So
it's just weird enough for me. It's just weird enough to where I like it. It's one of those seasons have teeth things for me. I remember liking the first issue, and I like this one, and the things that we learned in this one makes me want to read more because I want to find out about it. I want to know the religious agents that show up. I want to know what their deal is. Like, I want to know. I hope the next issue kind of tells us what exactly is going on, though, because it is kind of 2 issues, and you introduce some new stuff right at the beginning and then right at the very end. I don't know. There's something about this book that I like. I dig the story. The art is Dark Horse art, but that's never a bad thing for me. This might have like a one season of streaming feel to it, but I dig it.
Hellboy and the BPRD, 1957.
yeah, this is a one shot, I think.
Yep.
Or if it's not, it's the episode by itself called From Below, and this was cool. You know, it's got Mike Norton's art. He's got Magnola and Chris Robertson writing it, and it's just a neat little Hellboy adventure. It reminds me of when they were doing the Hellboy animated movies. It's like, yeah, we're just going to go do this off the Tad Stones was doing those movies. This was fun. You know, we get Hellboy out in the field. We get a new agent to work with, and we get Professor Broom out there as well. We get a really cool looking monster for them to face. And it's probably going to set stuff up because they like to do that where, oh, you remember back in this issue? Well, here they are. These people are back again. But this is a nice one shot. If you're just looking for a fun little Hellboy story, there it is. You don't need to know anything before it. It tells you everything you need. It's cool art, cool story.
Me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of the first note I put on here. This is it's a fun little Hellboy story. It was super short, and I'm kind of 50-50 on could a couple of pages made it better, or would a couple of pages had drug it down. I think it's fine the way it is, but it kind of feels like this could have been collected in some mini stories, like a little anthology thing, but it was good. The art was pretty standard Hellboy art, and again, I mean that in a good way. I like how Hellboy looked in this one. It's not a bad story by any means. I really dug it. Just to me, it was over real quick, and I kind of wanted more of this one.
This was a Hellboy story. This is what I look for in a Hellboy story. This is what I want from a Hellboy story. If you're going to do a Hellboy story and you're not going to do this, don't make a Hellboy story. This was perfect for me. It was exactly what we needed from the Hellboy universe, which had been getting too big and kind of too out there. And it's, who is this now and what is that now? This brings you back home, brings you back to the BPRD, brings you back to the Hellboy you know, who, I'll be honest, unfortunately, I no longer hear the voice of Ron Perlman when I hear Hellboy. I hear Andre Braugher from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like, just very deadpan and just matter of fact, but still funny. Right? Like, and I'm good with it. It's not this felt like that. I loved the bad guy, kind of a freak of the week kind of story. It hit all the buttons, checked all the boxes, 100%, all day long. This is my favorite Hellboy story in a while.
By the way, it gets extra points for being set in Coos Bay, Oregon, a place where I've been and have family.
I just assume that nobody actually lives in Oregon.
No, people really do.
I just assume that it's all trees.
That's okay.
And Funko.
You know how many people think Ohio's not a real place at all?
I've been there. It's not. All right. I did say boobs at the beginning. There are no boobs in the Buffy book. That would be wildly inappropriate. There are boobs in the Fire and Ice, and there are boobs in several other books. But no, you don't get to see the random teenager in the Buffy book's boobs.
You do get to see Spikes, though.
Yes. Well, I suppose that counts.
Yeah. So this is that future storyline where Thessaly is the new Slayer. You know, the daughter of Willow and the woman Willow loved. Don't remember the name. I'm not a big Buffy person. But, Buffy for me is Paul Rubin kicking the wall as he's dying, by the way. R.I.P. Pee-wee.
Yep.
This continues that storyline. And if you're liking that storyline, that new Slayer, jump on board. If that's not your thing, I'm not a big fan, but, I'm not a big Buffy fan anyway. So
this series, the previous series, and then this one shot is the Karate Kid. I'm sorry, it's not a one shot. This mini and the previous series is if the Karate Kid, if the rival karate gangs were demons and vampires and stuff. Buffy is Mr. Miyagi. Thessaly is Daniel, and that's the story. You've seen it before. You've heard it before. What makes this fun is this idea of Buffy not believing she's as old as she is or not wanting to act her age because Buffy never has really acted her age.
Yeah.
So she's not as young as she used to be, but she's still like pull the curtains open and wake this girl up with sunlight and protein, and cereal and be like, all right, it's time to go training. Let's go. This idea of Buffy not recognizing the change in the time, which is what makes this interesting to me. Spike being 1600 years old or whatever the hell, like that's fun too, because now it's Spike is like, he almost feels like the Giles of this story.
Yeah. And they have become watchers.
Yeah.
Buffy and Spike are Thessaly's watchers.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
It says that several times in the book. So it's going to be interesting to see how this relationship goes forward and what that turns into. But I like it, but I'm not sure I'd want it to continue beyond the couple of miniseries it's been. I just don't know how it would slot into the Buffy universe.
By the way, Boom, scale the logo down a little bit, will you? I'd like to actually see the art on the cover. You got your people you have the people in the foreground behind the logo. You got the people in the background in front of the logo.
And then there's people in front of all the logos. Like just one random person who they had to put her face a little over the Y.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is she's behind Spike and Buffy?
Right, but she's in front of the logo, but
Yeah.
they're behind the logo. Look, this is just bad graphic design.
Exactly. Scale it down a bit.
Jay,
I want to say that her name was Tara or Tara, Willow and Tara or Tara.
I think you're right.
Look, I love the show, and I love the movie. They had their issues, of course, but I just cannot get into the comics. I can't. It doesn't matter if, like in this one, it's an older alternate universe Buffy or whatever. It's about the next Slayer. You know, Buffy and Spike just kind of feel like a footnote in this, and in that respect, why even have? I mean, I know why you put the Buffy name on there, but why not just call it The Last Vampire Slayer? Yeah, I don't know. It's just this is just one that, try as I might, as much as I love the movie and the show, I don't know. I just can't get into it.
Conan the O'Brien, number 1.
I don't know about you guys. I wanted to love this. It had all the components I wanted. I get into it, and then there's an element they add, and I think Jay's the same as me, and it's a little spoilery of an element, but suddenly it's like, oh really? Why would you go there? And there's another book that did that to me too this week. So I would love for this to stay mainly, and I realize it's an element that's normally in fantasy, but this had a great setup. Is it Jim Zub writing this?
Yeah.
He's got a good feel for Conan. The dialogue is strong. The art looks good. This is the same guy that did the last Tarzan book for Dynamite. So all of that I am on board for. But that little twist just irked me enough that it kind of kicked me out of it.
Yeah. I I haven't read a ton of Conan, but fan of the movie as a kid and the cartoon. I really dug the cartoon as a kid. The art was fantastic. I really liked the art, and I was digging the story too. I was right there with you, but I could have done without the main threat. And if I'm being honest, there are a lot of books that are starting to add these things, and like it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And if anything, if they were going to add anything kind of weird and out there, I would have much rather them had the snake people from the cartoon. Like, it's hopefully maybe this is not going to be the lasting threat in the whole thing. Maybe this is a 1 or 2 issue thing, and then they're going to move on to something else. And I really hope that's what they do, because I want to love this too.
But nowadays they go 8 issues, and then the property ends up at another publisher.
I spent the whole time reading this issue looking for Andy Richter and Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. And then I realized I was thinking about the wrong Conan, which happens to be the only Conan I like. So, yeah. Didn't care for the art. Writing wasn't really my style. Didn't really care for the story. Not really a fan of the character. Just nothing about this was for me. However, if you're into sword and sorcery, high fantasy, with that kind of look, with that kind of feeling that Conan has traditionally had, this is what you want. It's not like some of the past Conan books that we've gotten from Marvel and Dynamite and other places where it is a different feeling Conan. This feels like Edgar Rice Burroughs Conan, which is good if you like it. If you don't like it, you're just kind of screwed. And that's fine. Not everything has to be for everybody, and this one wasn't for me.
No, Ed, it's not fish people.
All right, Macross.
You know, I am the age group that Robotech was big. Everybody was into Robotech and the Macross and all that stuff. And I never got into it. Just, it wasn't my thing. And I liked airplanes growing up too. So you think this would just be right. I never got into it. This is all right. This was a book that didn't have a positive or negative feeling for me. I thought the art was good. I thought the writing was fine. I don't know if I would buy a second issue. I don't know if I'd buy the first issue, but I also didn't hate it. You know, I'm just kind of meh. I'm whelmed.
Jay, you go and talk till I get back.
Okay. So, yeah, this was all right. It felt like just a hodgepodge of various animes and American cartoons. That's because I didn't know it was an actual thing. I was like, man, this reminds me a lot of 80s and 90s cartoons for some reason. Well, that's probably why. It felt a little Voltronish to me, but instead of lions, it was like they were in Starscreams. The ships, or the ships, the planes, the jets, kind of looked like they were. Yeah, they kind of looked like they were Transformers. So I thought we were about to get a Pacific Rim kind of thing going on.
By the way, I'm fairly sure that Robotech predates Transformers and all those things that you mentioned.
See, you didn't know about it.
It does.
But this was all right. This is not one of those ones that I don't regret reading it. I just wish I knew a little bit more about it. But I mean, this was a good story.
So one of my most prized possessions is this guy. This is the Macross BT-1 Super Ostrich. This is a Japanese import toy that was created when this series first came out. It's not quite complete. It's almost there, but not quite. I love Robotech. And I love Macross. They're the same thing. They're just different iterations. By the way, this is the model that Hasbro stole to make Starscream. Like, they literally just modified a few of the Transformer bits to make theirs. This was not that. This was something else. It's like Ed says, it's underwhelming cover for Robotech. The whole thing was underwhelming for Robotech. It had moments where it felt like the original manga or like the anime that people in the US may be familiar with. But then it had moments where it felt like Brandon Easton was just like, let me throw in this reference that I get that maybe no one else will. And it takes you out of it. Or where the original anime and manga would have been a little more matter of fact or hard hitting about something, he pulled his punches. It just makes for an awkward read of something that you're really into. And so at the end of the day, it just, again, this is another one. This week's tagline should be, it has the potential. This has the potential if it just changed everything about itself. Speaking of a book that has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Triple B, this one has all the boobs.
That's true.
So many boobs.
By the way, this may or may not be out tomorrow. It may not come out till the following week.
Yeah.
Titan was a little unclear on it.
Right. It's my list says the 9th. I was able to find on the internet where it says it's out this week too. It could be, you know. Yeah, this book has all the potential.
Yeah.
And in fact, it has some completed potential.
This is basically James Bond with boobs.
Yep.
And I like James Bond, and I'm in for this. I enjoy this. You know, when they send it, I'm going to read it because it's a fun little kind of espionage thriller type thing. The character's kind of clever. You see some machinations going on, so there's a lot to it. It's not just a superficial book.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. So I know Kyle probably had a hard time reading it. He was probably in a McDonald's drive-through trying to read it. And
I was not today, which was good. Thank God. So after the first one, I was kind of turned off by this book.
Yeah.
This wasn't really for me. The storytelling in this book, though, took it to a level that I'm now hooked. When there's a big thing that happens at the end of the first book that you realize was all this red herring by the time you get to the. It's funny because she has red hair.
Fake red hair.
Right, fake red hair. By the time you get to this book, you find out that was all a red herring, and now you're hooked in. Because it's like this is some Ocean's 11 level misdirection here, and I'm in. I'll be honest. I thought some of the nudity and nudity and some of the sexuality and some of this stuff was gratuitous and not needed. But if that's what you have to do to be able to tell this story, if you have to include that stuff to get the publisher to publish it, I can get behind that. Almost.
I like the fact that this is coming from the guy who earlier pointed out the one completely useless nude scene in Swordfish, a movie that didn't have any other nude scenes, didn't need a nude scene.
You
but
have
that's
to
how you
understand.
remember the movie.
Well, I was also going to ask, is that the one where John Travolta has dreads?
No, he doesn't have dreads. He has long hair, but dreads are Battlefield Earth.
Can I tell you why I remember the one nude scene?
Why?
Because at the age I was when I saw that nude scene, I should not have been allowed to see nude scenes. Yeah, it was a coming of age moment.
Jeez. So weird. I never had that limitation when I was a kid. Whatever I watched, I could watch. Whatever could be watched, I watched. But when it comes to this book, I'm going to have to go back and read the first one. This, to me, is so twisty-turny. I keep forgetting parts of it. It has me lost, but it's not like I don't like it, I'm not paying attention kind of thing. It's just things happened in this one. I was like, but why? Especially near the end. I got that one reveal was awesome. I love that. I was like, oh, wow, that one got me. But if you have a memory as bad as mine, I would suggest to you, as great as this book is, wait till it's all done and it comes out so you can read it all at one time. Because when we get issue 3, I'm going to probably have to go back and read 1 and 2 again. I love it. I just can't remember it. But it's so well written. I love the spy thriller element. I think this book is the female James Bond, but it also stands on its own with that. So it's more than just boobs. It's a good book.
Although mostly boobs.
Boobs, yeah.
I like the premise, the idea that somebody specializes in making people disappear.
Yeah, I don't know Charles Ardai, Ardai, who's writing this.
Me neither.
It's not a name I haven't heard before, but they're doing a hell of a job. They've written other Gun Honey stuff. Mostly, okay, so they mostly write, I looked it up. Corey's War, The Triggerman, Normandy Gold. So it's mostly this hard case stuff from Titan. This is a great story. Yeah. Definitely want to pick this one up. Okay. TMNT, Last Ronin, The Lost Years, number 5. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Have either of you read any TMNT, The Last Ronin, The Lost Years?
We read the first issue of this series.
Okay.
Oh,
where he was up in his little private area, and a group came up and attacked him. They were taking out a villager close by. They saw him, went up there, and he ended up taking them out. And that's referenced by the bad guy at the end.
Yeah. So that would have been March, Jay.
oh, okay. Okay.
That's why, like, I want to just know, like, have you guys been reading this? I've been reading it every month. But I thought it was worth checking.
Yeah, I wouldn't have grabbed it, but it was the only IDW book that kind of fell into our range.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys want to go first?
Oh,
No, you're the one that I think you should.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This story is one of those issues in the middle of a run that's just like getting you from point A to point B, but not really telling you anything or moving anything forward all that much. As this series has gone, I thought Last Ronin Lost Years has been a little weaker than the original Last Ronin series. I think some of what made that series special is lost here. And part of that was, I think, the idea that Eastman and Laird were working together for the first time in a long time on that first series. And now it's back to Eastman and Waltz, who, have been doing Turtles all along. I think some of that lightning in the bottle that happened when Peter joined back with Kevin kind of is lost. So while this story had good action and was a good standalone story, when you put it in the context of all, what is it going to be, 6 or 8 issues? Maybe this is the last one. I just don't remember.
This is the last issue.
When you put it in the context of everything else, this issue is a letdown. Just because it doesn't feel like it wraps up the story based on everything else we've read. And it doesn't feel like, because it's the last issue and we now know it's the last issue, if this is 5 of 8, this is a great book. If it's the last issue, they're just setting you up for another miniseries that you're going to have to remember what happened to go into. So.
Yep, that is what they're doing. I think what I like about this is that it's what I don't like about the ongoing series right now. It's focused on, well, in this case, a turtle, even though we got the other 3 sort of popping up. So for me, it's kind of the turtles I know, or I can follow. It's not the entire city is filled with mutates now, and Baxter Stockman is this, and it's like, just give me a straightforward story that I don't need to read 97 things to figure out, and have to call Kyle at home going, okay, why is there an extra turtle?
Right.
Yeah. So I like it from that point of view, but yeah, it does feel like they're kind of to be continued next season at the end. It's not it ends the arc, but it seems to do it more focused on carrying things over. This is like Last Ronin European Vacation.
Right. I thought it's amazing there's not a giant page at the end that's all black with the white letters, "To be continued." ...
Question mark.
Right.
Well, I'm a little on the opposite end. Haven't read 1 through 4, but because of this one, I really want to. Maybe that's just the benefit of not reading the first 4. I thought this was very well written, well drawn. I wish some of the other Turtle books would have been like this. I do remember, I can't remember exactly if it was an omnibus version of it or if we just got the collected, the volume 1 or whatever of the first Ronin. But I remember I couldn't stop reading it. I was only going to skim it, and the story was so good I read the whole thing. This one, to me, I thought this one looked to be the same thing. This issue, it's got some violence in it, but it was really well written. I really felt a connection with the remaining Turtle. I thought the pace was pretty killer, and the end panel, I was like, "What is this?" Hopefully, if they do another one, like Dan said that they were going to do, I'm hoping they continue this trend. But again, this is just me reading this one issue, so I don't know what happened in the previous 4. So,
all right. Well, we've managed to catch up a little bit on our times here. So, I want to take a minute and remind everybody that coming up, starting Sunday, here on The Experience, we are celebrating our 2,000 subscribers, reaching the 2,000 subscriber mark. And we are doing that by giving away 20 different graded comics. How do you win them? You show up and watch the shows that we put on the air. That's how you win. More information coming very soon, probably tomorrow, from us here at The Experience on how that is going to happen. In the meantime, Dan, what's happening on the Dan Wickline show? Are you going to buy glow-in-the-dark yarn that I sent you on the internet so that you can make lightsabers for Crochet Jedi?
I immediately sent that link to Lisa and my ex-wife, Debbie, who also are crocheting, and they both came back to me with the exact same question. Are you going to buy any of that? I don't know. Kind of hoping they were going to buy it, and then I could see what it looks like. And I don't know if I am or not. And I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing on the show. Tomorrow, there's a good chance we're going to be talking about the 4th and final season of Jack Ryan. And I say final because it kind of feels like they're setting it up that for a follow-up series of other people that Krasinski might pop up in occasionally as Ryan. So don't know what I'm doing Thursday. This is kind of in this weird limbo thing with, the studios shut down, everything going. There's not a lot I can focus on. So
we could do a whole episode on why I am no longer a fan of the gentleman who played the Arrow on the DC shows.
Okay, that we talked about today, and I disagree with you 100%. And he's put out a statement afterwards that you need to read.
Oh, it has nothing to do with that.
Oh.
Has everything to do with the second season of Heels. Real bad. Real disappointing. Has everything to do with I'm just mad at him right now.
Yeah. I haven't watched the last part of the 3rd season of Witcher, but I will.
All right, Jay, what's happening with the Triangle?
Hopefully we're going to start getting some more reviews up. I think we're going to try to do some trailer reactions. There's been some cool stuff that's dropped. I am going to have an amazing amount of Kickstarters coming in. And I too have a little Stephen Amell thing. I've liked Stephen Amell since he was on Blue Mountain State for the 2 episodes he was in. I've been following him for years. Been asking him questions ever since he started doing, the Q&As he was doing when he was on Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I finally got to ask him a question, and the answer was no. After years. And all I asked was, hey, man, if ever asked, would you be interested in working on a comic with somebody? He's just like, no. He didn't even read the whole question. I was like, well, at least after, 9 or 10 years or however long it's been, he finally acknowledged I said something to him.
except that they are in contract to do a comic with Sumerian.
Really?
Well, his production company is.
Oh,
Anyway, when we talk about reasons why I'm angry at Stephen Amell, that's another one. I've been waiting for that book since Dan interviewed the guy from Sumerian while I was in the hospital having my second foot surgery way back in 2021.
oh wow.
I interviewed somebody who worked on a book called Sumerian.
No, you worked at a company called Sumerian when they were called a different name. When they were Behemoth.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Dan and Jenna.
No.
Vivid memory.
I don't remember.
I feel so bad because I think I'm friends with the guy on Facebook. I just blanked out his name. I feel so bad. I think I know who you're talking about,
Yep,
though.
it ain't a big deal. All right, here we go. Monday night on Devil's Advocates. I suppose I got to plug my own thing. We are talking about reprints, second printings, and variants. And this is a spin-off of our comic book Mythbusters series that we've been doing, where we're going to talk about the idea that second printings, reprints, and things like that hold value. And we're going to talk about the instances where they do and the instances where they don't, and how you shouldn't get tricked by the times when they don't by thinking that there are times when they do.
Ed, I have done.
Ed, I will save Dan. It was part of the EXP's 6-month anniversary. Yeah, so it was a long day, and Dan had done like 4 other interviews, so it's not on him, although I do think he's probably a Skrull.
Was it Kevin?
Yes.
Kevin Rotatelli?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, Ed, tomorrow will be the 100th Dan Wickline show I've done since I took over doing the PR or the social media. And that was only back in November, middle of November. So
yeah,
that's a lot of shows.
Mm-hmm. So real quick, while we were sitting here talking, I was playing with my Super Ostrich. I've had this thing for like 15 years. I didn't know that it had these metal landing gear.
Surprise.
Well, I was playing with this little button, which I thought was just for aesthetics, right? And it turns out, nope, it's a button. All right. Project Riese from Mad Cave.
Project Riese. This is the other book that I really started enjoying. I like the art. I like the story. I like the subject matter. Going really good. And then on the last page, it's like, oh man. It's not a heist book. It's a horror book. I wanted a heist book. I love a good heist book, especially a historical heist book. And this was totally a historical heist book. It was really cool. I was getting into it. It's got Nazis. It's got secret doors and all these things and passages and Morse code and just. And I got used to the art because everybody just seems like they're bobbleheads. But overall, I was really enjoying this book. And I haven't enjoyed a lot of Mad Cave books, so I was excited for that. And then it took the Colin Bunn horror twist. It didn't need that.
Yeah, I'm almost in the same boat with you. The art fits the story. I liked it. The stinger at the end didn't surprise me. It just didn't. I'm a big fan of that movie Overlord, and that's the first thing I thought of when I started reading this. I was like, there's going to be something. There's going to be something because the case at the beginning and all that other stuff, the thing they got at the beginning, I was like, it's gonna be in there. So I wasn't that surprised. But they saved it for like the very last page. It did kind of get me. I was kind of like, okay, I want to see what it is in the next one. So I'd read it a second one. Now, the thing that surprised me was it felt like they waited till like the last 2 pages to turn on the navy blue language there. Like it was pretty much periwinkle blue for most of it, and Letterkenny fans will get that. That's probably why Dan doesn't get it. And then they cranked it up. I know, Dan, I know, but they cranked that language up. It was only two words, but still, it was very weird reading most of the book and nobody saying any swear words. And then it's like we get to the last 2 pages and 2 F-bombs. It was kind of weird. Nothing that like detracts from the book or anything, but it was just strange.
Well, they did talk, he is Canadian, and they did talk about politeness and how politeness was going to be a weapon. So it does make sense a little bit.
Yeah, but Jay is right about the Letterkenny of it all. I really enjoyed this book until the last 4 panels. I'm with Dan on this one. Like, I was like, I'm not really into heist books. I would much prefer a horror book, but don't sell me on a heist book for 22 pages. And then at the very end, give me a heist book or give me a horror book. Give me a horror book from the outset. And that's kind of the answer to that. Like, it just seems like this book didn't know what it wanted to be until the last 4 pages, and it made the wrong choice. Now, I'm interested to see who Sunglass Guy is. I'm interested to see what they find in these tunnels. I'm also interested to see how they tie up the neat little bow. How they tie this up in a neat little bow. But yeah, it seems like a book that maybe missed a couple of tricks and made some bad choices. So, at the end of the day, this is a solid book. If you're looking for something new and vaguely different to read, I would pick this one up. Especially if you've been looking for an excuse to try Mad Cave. But yeah, this one's got a little bit of so. All right, we are out of time. So comicshoplocator.com, comicshoplocator.com, comicshoplocator.com. We will see everybody next time on In Stores this week. Jay and I will be right back on Minute to Skim It. And we'll talk to everybody later. Bye, guys.